Hello and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. I almost introduced myself and said I'm Lauren from Lauren and the Books, but if you've never been here before, maybe you don't know who I am, and I'm Lauren and I'm from Lauren and the Books. And today we're doing a book tag. Don't often do book tags on this channel, but when I do them every year. So I do, this is the mid-year freakout tag, which I like to do halfway through the year, as other people do like to do that also. It's a great way of checking in on your reading so far. I watched last year's version of this and I did it at the beginning of June, and now I'm watching this, doing it at the end of July. My God, I had a much better reading year last year in just how excited I was talking about the books and remembering how good they all were. You may well have recently seen my best books of the year so far video. I'll link it down below if you haven't seen it. Please go and have a look. And normally I like to include 10 books in my best books of the year so far. I couldn't find 10 books that I could honestly say had been really good and memorable for me, so I didn't do 10 books. So that's quite telling already. But yeah, 2023 me, with her blonde streaks and her short ginger hair, was having a lovely time. So I was quite envious of her, really. Thinking about all the good books that she'd read. But yeah, here we are with 13 questions about my reading this year. If you've got a YouTube channel and you've done this, please let me know down below in the comments. Similarly, if you haven't and you'd like to answer these questions, because I saw somebody I follow on Instagram, Benedict, he did this over Instagram as Instagram questions, and I was so interested in his answers. So if you don't have a YouTube channel, the questions are all written below and you can answer them in the comments, because I'd love to hear from you. The first one, the main event, is the best book you've read so far in 2024. I went back and had a look at the video of me talking about the books that I've read this year and my favourite so far. And I will say Pet by Catherine Chidgey is an extremely good book. And I had a lovely time reading this. We read it for Patreon book club, so any book that I get to sort of like really discuss it afterwards always adds an extra level of sort of like a thumbs up for me. But this is a book set in New Zealand over two time periods, 2014 and 1984. We're following a woman in 2014, Justine, whose father has recently been put into a care home, and she's looking back on her time that she was in school in the 80s, in 1984, with particular focus on her teacher, Mrs. Price, who had pets within the class. She had special pupils who she would sort of draw upon to do little special jobs for her, and these would be things like closing the windows or cleaning the board down and stuff like that. And like, if you were in favour with Mrs. Price, then sort of the other pupils sort of revered you a little bit and things like that. Now, there was also some bad shit happens in here as well. So what starts off as quite sort of like harmless sort of little jobs and things like that, and then you see other stuff going on as well. It reminded me a lot of a film that I've really loved this year called The Teacher's Lounge, which was a German film. David and I went to watch it at the cinema earlier this year. But yeah, it's really good. Something else I will say is that this front cover is so clever. So when you look at it, it just, like, this particular item has such this pen that belongs to Justine has such a main part in the story. Like, it's almost its own sort of character or plot itself, and to include it on here with this sort of font and stuff, it's all very clever and great. So yeah, this is really good, and I would honestly say if you're looking for a book to read over the summer, I still will get round to doing some books to take on summer holidays. Like, this is a real page turner, but like a literary thriller. Who's beeping, David? Some cheeky people. But yeah, really good. Had a lovely time with this. The best sequel I've read so far in 2024, well, I had a lovely day where I read all the Heartstopper books and watched the first half of season 3 of Bridgerton. I vlogged it, so I'll link that down below. And I'd read 1, 2 and 3 of Heartstopper before, which I believe is how far the Netflix series has got as well. But I hadn't read 4 or 5, and 6 is coming out this year. But 4 was just amazing. Like, I mean, they're all great books. They're this lovely graphic novel love story about this couple, Nick and Charlie, young lads at a boys' school. The author actually went to school in Kent, which is where I'm from, so it all feels very familiar. And yeah, it's their love story and the sort of like surrounding characters in their lives, their friends and families and stuff. And this particular book it deals with some really like beautiful parts of like being young and being in love, and Nick, one of the characters, one of the chaps in the couple, he doesn't realise that he's queer. He finds out that he's bisexual, and he has by having feelings for Charlie. So it deals with like those sort of like young love and all of that and the excitement of it, but it also deals with some like quite hard hitting stuff. And in volume 4 in particular, it dealt with Charlie's eating disorder and mental health issues and self-harm, and it was just done in such a real and amazing way that like none of it was sugar coated, and it also looked at all different aspects of it. So like it was looking at what it's like for Nick to have a boyfriend who's spending time as an inpatient due to his mental health, and how that might be affecting him, and him still wanting to have his life outside and thinking about where he's going to go to university, but having to consider this young love that he's in that's sort of all consuming and everything. And it was just really wonderful piece of writing and illustration, and I literally cried the whole entire way. It was just so amazing, and like really moving and really upsetting in places, but also really lovely in places. And it's not just like all super hopeful, it's all going to be okay in the end, because like points it doesn't feel like it's all going to be okay in the end. But yeah, I love the series, but volume 4 in particular was just absolutely amazing. Looking forward to, but very nervous about volume 6, because then it'll all be over. But yeah, it's just a lovely thing. It's just a lovely thing. If you, well, I was gonna say if you know young people, get them to read it, but honestly, read it. Just any age. It's just really, really lovely. Question 3 is a new release you haven't read yet, but you want to. This is, I mentioned this in a book haul recently as well, is that I went, on the day that this book came out, I went to Waterstones and bought it. This is My Favourite Mistake by Marion Keyes. This is, I'm gonna take this £3 off sticker. This is Marion Keyes' recent release, and I was so excited about it because I quite enjoy myself a Marion Keyes. My favourite's probably Rachel's Holiday, but they really, like when it was the lockdown, and I had like big books with my friend during the lockdown, because you could spend like time with these people who were doing like things that you weren't able to do, and it was just all lovely. And yeah, I've had a lovely time with not all Marion Keyes, but this was the most recent one. I was very excited. And it's about Anna. So this is the same sort of multiverse, if you like, as my cousin Rachel's Holiday, because it's from the same family, I believe. Yeah, they're all the Walshes, I think they're called. But yeah, this, and like it's just great fun, really, just great fun. So I can't believe that I haven't read this and how excited I was. So I own it, I need to read it, I will get around to reading it. Number 4 is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Now, for me, it's a book that's out in 2 days, so I'm very, very excited. And I actually saw a picture of people who'd been to this book launch last night in Canterbury and had their copies, and I was like, oh, it must be out then, because I've pre-ordered it on audio, because Nicola Coughlan does the second mention for Nicola Coughlan. She does the narration of the audiobook, and she is amazing. And it's Queen Bee by Juno Dawson. Yeah, God, I forgot Juno's last name then. By Juno Dawson. And this is the prequel, and it's a novella, so it's not super long. I actually had a look at how long the audiobook is, and it's not even quite 5 hours. And it's in the Her Majesty's Royal Coven series. So there's been 2 books of that, Her Majesty's Royal Coven and The Shadow Cabinet, about a group of young women who are witches in sort of like modern time, living in Hebden Bridge. And that is just like, it's just an amazing series. I'm actually gonna listen to those after I finish Queen Bee. But Queen Bee is a prequel to this, and it's about one of the original covens, and it follows Anne Boleyn. So it's literally like some of my favourite stuff altogether. This book series, which I love, plus another book series which I've been very much enjoying, the 6 Tudor Queens and 6 the musical, and everything about Anne Boleyn, sort of merging together. So I'm very, very, very excited about it. And like I said, it comes out on Thursday, and I will be listening to it on the day. Yeah, I'm really, really excited. I might even go for a little walk after work. And oh no, I can't. We're going to the theatre on Thursday. I'll be listening to it somehow, do not worry. Number 5 is biggest disappointment. Now, if I can pick a month in general as the biggest disappointment, and you know I quite like January, my reading in January was so disappointing, so bad. So First of all, I read Stolen by Anne Helen Lestadius, which is a book that I asked for from David's mum and dad for Christmas, and thought I was going to really like, and it was fine. Then I read Tackle by Jilly Cooper, which I read for my quiet book club, and I thought it was going to be like a right laugh. Never read a Jilly Cooper before. I thought it was going to be brilliant. It was literally the biggest disappointment of my life. It was so awful. Like, I can't even believe it was written by a woman. Just the way women are written in this book was just awful. And I mean, the men don't do much better either. They're all just considered like complete absolute shaggers. Awful. Then Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. David bought me that for Christmas. I thought that was going to be great. I didn't really love it that much. Jane is Trying by Issy Sooty was just fine. And then another one which I really didn't like was Chain Gang All Stars, which was by Nana Kwame Adeji Brenya, which we read for Patreon Book Club. And I thought that was going to be great as well, because the premise was amazing. It sounded really sort of innovative and like, wow, about how people in the prison system in America are then put into sort of like a reality TV show and fight against one another. But it was just so confusing and just so action-packed that I didn't really understand what was going on in the action. So yeah, I just had a really, really disappointing... I mean, the year hasn't been great anyway, but January in particular, and particularly those two books, so Tackle and Chain Gang All Stars, were just terribly disappointing. My biggest surprise, however, and it's one that I've just finished, because I hoped it would be good, but it surprised me at how much I didn't want to put this book down, because it's not really like my thing. Well, maybe it is my thing, but anyway, it just really surprised me how much I loved it. And it's Speak Okinawa by Elizabeth Mickey Briner. This is Elizabeth's memoir, and it's her life as a child of an American father, a white American father, and a Japanese mother. Her mother's from a place in Japan called Okinawa, which I didn't even know existed. It's like way off the coast of Japan. It's been under sort of like American rule before, under Chinese rule, and her mother's from there, and it's about her sort of like testing relationship with her mother as she was growing up, and like really focuses on some bad thoughts that she's had about her mother in the past. Like, they never really bonded with one another, and she was always felt a bit embarrassed about her mother and stuff like that. And like, her vocalizing that in this is just a really like thing to do, but she's done it so well. And like the ending is just so beautiful and lovely, and how she's sort of like come full circle. But also it tells the story of Okinawa, and it tells her mum and dad's love story, and it tells her story. And yeah, I just thought it was fucking brilliant. And I think it was just a big surprise, because, well, maybe also because I'd seen Mercedes talk about this book, and I put it on my reservations list at the library. I think maybe even in her best books of last year, maybe, but it'd been on my reservations list for a long time, and I'd got it out from the library, renewed it 4 times, hadn't got round to reading it, took it back to the library and thought, shall I take it back or shall I sit, because in my library, if nobody else has got a reservation on it, you can return it and get it straight back out again. So I returned it and got it straight back out again. Again, it'd been sitting there like, so I've had this basically with me since the beginning of the year in my library book piles, and every time I was like, no, I don't really fancy it. But I knew I needed to get through some of my library books, and this was the only non-fiction I had from the library, so I was like, I'll just read that, and then all I've got is fiction. And I just had an amazing time with it. It was really, really good. And if I'd have been filming my best books of the year maybe a couple of weeks later, then this would have topped the best books of the year, because yeah, I really, really loved it. My next one is favourite new author, and this might be a debut or new to you, and I've sadly put none. Now, you would have heard how much I loved this, and that's great. Like, maybe that is my favourite new debut author. It's definitely the best author work that I've read this year, new to me. But a lot of the stuff that I've read this year that I've enjoyed has been stuff from people that I've read before. Claire Keegan, reread a few of her bits. Read a new Daphne du Maurier book, The House on the Strand, but read lots of Daphne du Maurier before. What else have I read that? I've read, listened to The Paying Guest again by Sarah Waters. Really, really enjoyed that. So although I've read some books by newish authors, like none of them, I don't know if any of them are going to be faves to me. Like, I haven't felt the same about any of the books that I've read this year, that I've been like, oh god, I need to read everything by that person. And maybe that's because this was non-fiction. Oh, I've also read books by Catherine Chidgey before as well, which is why she doesn't feature. But yeah, none, which is sad. Sad. Next up is newish fictional crush, and I fucking hate this question because, like, yeah, I just, for someone who gets a crush on literally everyone, like, I find it really hard to recall those sorts of things. Now, so I've gone for the main character, Agnes, in Sugar Baby by Celine St. Clair. This is another book that would be great for a holiday as well. This is about Agnes, who is turning 21 and she works as a cleaner with her mum, and her life isn't how she wants it to be, and she's cleaning for somebody who is staying with her mother, who's like just got this most hugely glamorous life and like all the handbags you could imagine and that sort of like lots of belongings and expensive bits and stuff like that. And anyway, Agnes gets chatting to this girl Emily and finds out that she's sort of working as an escort, and Agnes then goes down that road herself. And I just loved sort of Agnes's acceptance of stuff and just like getting on with it. So I suppose I had a crush on her in terms of like just her grabbing her new life with both hands and just running with it. But yeah, no romantic crushes this year, guys. Unless one of you can remember a romantic crush I've had, then I'll take it. My newest favourite character is probably Mrs. Price in Pet, because, yeah, it's a real is she, isn't she, loads of stuff, and like, yeah, I see her as a sort of Mrs. Danvers-esque character almost, like so many different, like, is there something dodgy going on here, or is it these children overthinking it, or are we hearing about it from an unreliable point of view? And yeah, just the sort of allure and mystery built up around Mrs. Price in this book, and how revered she is by these children and sort of idolised. It's really, really something special. She's like almost like, it's like a Disney villain type vibe with it. So yeah, Mrs. Price, really enjoyed it. A book that made me cry was Brotherless Night by V V Ganeshanathan. Now, this was my favourite book from the Women's Prize shortlist. It actually won, so I'm very pleased. And yeah, it was an amazing, that was a surprise to me as well, how emotional I got at the end of that book. I mean, not really, the topic was awful and the subject matter was awful, but yeah, I was really touched and connected to it. You're following a young woman who, it's set in Sri Lanka, and you're following a young woman who is studying to be a doctor, and she has brothers who are have joined a sort of terrorist organisation, and the title of the book, Brotherless Night, refers to sort of like her brothers getting caught up in like awful stuff, which is eventually maybe going to leave her brotherless. And yeah, it was just about a period of history that I had no idea existed. I didn't know anything about the Tamil Tigers, and it really educated me, as well as sort of really made me feel for this woman that we were following, and her brothers, and the awful stuff that was going on, and like her trying to do what she believed was good, but maybe other people didn't believe that, and like maybe what it's like working on the inside of a terrorist organisation and things like that. But yeah, I was really, really touched and moved by the whole thing, and delighted it won the Women's Prize. A book that made me happy, it's Reach for the Stars by Michael Cragg. It made me so happy. This is a non-fiction book about a period of pop history that was my era. So it's from 96 to 2006, and it's just following sort of like all the pop history that happened in the UK during that time. So it covers like the beginnings of the sort of reality TV show of like Hearsay being pulled together, and then like the early years of the X Factor. It follows the Spice Girls, which were a massive moment in my childhood and seemingly everyone else's. It follows boy bands. It follows and a lot of the processes as well between getting those bands together, and the songwriting that went on behind that, and the management and stuff like that. And it was just great to sort of relive this amazing time. I spent a lot of time on sort of like internet YouTube holes looking at videos of Atomic Kitten and Sugar Babes and stuff. So it actually got me really back into a big Sugar Babes like time of my life. I've been very much enjoying Sugar Babes, and yeah, it was just made me so happy. It was just such good fun, and I loved it. So yeah, brilliant. Number 12 is the most beautiful book you've bought or received this year, and I received this from Books on My Bag. They sent me the shortlists of their books for the Indie Book Awards, and this was also one of my favourite books of the year, and it's The Golden Mole by Another Vanishing Treasure by Catherine Rundle, and it really is just the most beautiful thing. So it's this gorgeous French flapped book called The Golden Mole, with this embossed sort of golden foil on it, golden spine, and then throughout the book, lovely French flaps and this sort of artwork throughout the book. It's different. It's about different animals and how they might be disappearing, but they've got this golden theme throughout. So they'll talk about the wolf and have this lovely illustration of a wolf on like a golden hill. And then here's the bear stood on a little bit of gold. They're not always stood on gold. And then there's some lemurs with these golden eyes. A bit like my cat Daphne, she's not gold, she's got golden eyes. Here's a spider with this golden web. And also, not only does it look gorgeous, it feels gorgeous too. This will make a beautiful gift for many, many people. And yeah, it's just a lovely, lovely thing to read. The golden mole at the end is just really special. Let me show you. Look at that. I've just never seen sort of gold on the inside of a book before. And it just felt really special. But yeah, lovely. Absolutely beautiful book. And like I said, would make a beautiful gift. And then the last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And I've quite miserably written some good ones, question mark. But I mean, I've just said, like, I'm talking about this book, talking about the books now, it does feel like I've read better books than I have led myself to believe. But I would like to read some more good ones. I mean, I've just read 2 good ones back to back, because I've read Speak Okinawa, and the book I'm reading at the moment, Gears for Queers, I'm really enjoying as well. Something else I'd like to do in the autumn and maybe going into winter, I'd really like to read the Anne of Green Gables series. I've read Anne of Green Gables a few times. I've read the actual book of it, and then I've listened to the audiobook that I've got that Rachel McAdams narrates a few times as well. But I've got the rest of the books here as well, and it would be really nice to get to them as well, because I love Anne of Green Gables so much. It would be nice to hear more of Anne's life. So I think maybe when September hits, I'll listen to the audiobook of Anne of Green Gables again, and then I'll go on to the next ones. I never know the order of them. Have they got them in here? No. I think the next one is Anne of Avonlea. I'd have to have a look. But yeah, Anne of Avonlea, Anne of the Island, Anne of Ingleside, Anne's House of Dreams, and Anne of Windy Poplars, which always makes me laugh. So yeah, I would like to read those, but we'll see. I'll just take some good books, please, please. So there we go. Those are the questions for the wonderful mid-year freakout tag. Hope you enjoyed them. And as I said, please do write your answers down below. Would love to hear from you. And if you've done this tag, then let me know in the comments. And I will see you all again soon for another BookTube video. Goodbye!